I was sitting at my desk this morning, just staring at my browser. I had, I don't know, maybe 30 tabs open.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized I was experiencing this very specific kind of paralysis. We have these incredible tools now, AI, large language models like NotebookLM, that can, theoretically process all of human knowledge.
Mm.
But the interface, the actual physical act of getting information into the machine, it feels like it's fighting us.
It's friction,
Yeah.
pure and simple. It's like trying to pour a gallon of water through a cocktail straw.
Right. And it leads to this weird behavior where we just treat our browsers like, I don't know, storage units.
Yes.
We're afraid to close a tab because we know the effort it takes to actually save it, to capture that knowledge is just too high.
Oh, absolutely. It's that visceral frustration.
Yeah.
You've got 50 messy notebooks and no folders, and you're stuck in that copy-paste, save as PDF dance. It's not just boring. It actually kills your curiosity.
It does.
By the time you've saved the article, you've totally lost the energy to even read it.
Exactly. It breaks the flow state. And that is specifically what we're tackling today. We aren't just talking about AI features. We're talking about fixing the workflow. We're analyzing a guide on mastering NotebookLM with essential productivity extensions. Essentially, how to turn this tool from a cool toy into a serious research engine.
That's the mission. We are unpacking two specific free Chrome extensions, NotebookLM Tools and NotebookLM Exporter. These are kind of the missing pieces of the puzzle that Google, frankly, forgot to build.
So lay out the map for us. How are we going to break this down?
Okay, so you've got a four-part agenda. First, was going to kill that copy-paste loop with instant web capture.
Good.
Second, we're going deep, really deep, on turning one article into a library of primary sources using link extraction.
Okay.
Third, we're finally solving the no folders problem with a pretty clever tagging system.
Yes, please.
And fourth, and honestly, this might be the most critical part, is data sovereignty.
Yeah.
How do you get your thoughts out of Google's walled garden before it's too late?
I like that. Data sovereignty is something we gloss over way too often until, you lose a file.
Right.
But let's start with that immediate pain point, the friction. The guide describes the old way of getting data into NotebookLM. Walk us through that nightmare.
It's painful just to describe, but I think everyone listening will recognize this struggle. Let's say you're on Wikipedia reading about the history of AI.
Okay.
You find a great section. In the old way, you have to highlight the text, copy it, open a Google Doc, paste it, rename the file.
Yeah, you can find it later.
Then download that doc as a PDF because for some reason that feels safer or more official, and then upload that PDF to NotebookLM.
That's 5 minutes of just admin work for 30 seconds of reading. It feels like you're working for the computer, not the other way around.
At least. And here's the real cost. In those 5 minutes, your brain has switched context maybe 3 or 4 times. You're thinking about file names, looking at your downloads folder. You are not thinking about the history of AI anymore.
You've shifted from learner to secretary.
Exactly.
I have to admit, and this is a bit of a vulnerable moment for me, I let tabs pile up specifically because of this. I'll leave them open till my browser crashes because the mental cost of that 5-minute loop is it's too high.
We all do it. It's called tab bankruptcy. You just declare bankruptcy and close them all without reading a thing.
Right.
But here's at the bridge. This is where NotebookLM Tools comes in. It's a Chrome extension made by independent developers, not Google. And it sits right in your browser sidebar.
So walk us through the new way. How does this change the physics of the problem?
Okay, picture this. You're on that same Wikipedia page. You open the NotebookLM Tools extension in your side panel. So it's split screen right there next to the article.
Okay.
You click one button that says Page, and then a blue button that says Create New Notebook. Boom. Done.
That's it. No downloading PDFs.
No PDFs, no Google Docs. It scrapes the text directly from the page. And crucially, it converts it into clean Markdown.
Pause there for a second. For the listener who might not be a coder, why does Markdown matter? Why is that better than just pasting the text?
Great question. When you copy-paste from a website, you're often bringing along a lot of invisible, junk-like formatting code, weird spacing, ad scripts. It's like bringing mud into the house. Markdown strips all that away. It's just the pure text and the structure. Headings, bullet points, bold text. It is the cleanest possible signal you can feed to an AI. It means NotebookLM doesn't have to wade through garbage to get to the meaning.
So you're going from a 5-minute slog to a 2-second click, and the data quality is actually higher.
Precisely. And the guide gives a great example of what you do next. because the friction is gone, you engage immediately. You can just type into the prompt box, summarize the made history of AI based on this source, make a bulleted list of the most important dates.
And it answers instantly.
Instantly.
This brings up an interesting question for me. If we remove the friction of capture, if it becomes effortless to save things, does that actually change the quality of the questions we ask?
I think it fundamentally does, because speed allows us to stay in the flow state. When the administrative burden disappears, your brain stays in curiosity mode instead of switching to librarian mode. You start asking deeper questions because you aren't mentally fatigued from filing paperwork.
I like that distinction. Curiosity mode versus librarian mode.
Yeah.
Now, let's move to the second feature, which I think is where things get really wild. Link extraction.
This is the feature that made me sit back and go, whoa, this is the power user moment. Imagine you're researching something complex, let's say, space travel. You're on Wikipedia. The summary is fine. It gives you the broad strokes.
Right.
But you don't want the summary. You want the deep cuts. You want the NASA technical reports, the news articles from the 60s, the primary sources that are linked in the footnotes at the bottom.
Which are usually buried. To get them, you'd have to click them one by one, open them in new tabs, and restart that whole save as PDF nightmare we just talked about.
Exactly. It's a fractal of boredom. But with this extension, you click on the Links tab in the sidebar and then hit Extract Links from this page.
What does it actually do?
It scrapes every single hyperlink on that page. It reads the code and pulls out every URL. Now here's the catch, and the guide is very specific about this because this is where people get into trouble. It might find 1,000 links on a single page.
1,000? That seems excessive.
Easily. Think about a Wikipedia page. Every edit button, every link to the terms of service or privacy policy, 90% of that is garbage for research.
Right. You don't need to analyze the Wikipedia privacy policy to understand space travel.
Not at all.
So you're drowning in noise. You've traded a lack of information for too much information. How do you filter it?
This is the crucial detail. The extension has an exclude box. It's just a simple text filter. You type in wikipedia.org or wikimedia.org and hit apply.
And that filters out all the internal navigation and stuff.
Instantly. Suddenly, all those internal links just vanish. You go from 1,000 links to maybe 275 clean external links, New York Times archives, NASA.gov reports, university research papers.
That is incredibly powerful. You're essentially using the Wikipedia article as a map to find the treasure rather than just looking at the map itself.
That's a perfect analogy. And then, this is the kicker, you can select all those 275 links and add them to your notebook as sources. So in seconds, you haven't just saved one article. You've built a library of over 200 primary sources.
And once they're in the notebook, you can ask the AI to cross-reference them.
Right. The guide suggests a prompt like, I have added many external news links. Please read through them and tell me if they agree with the main Wikipedia article or if they offer different opinions.
That is fascinating. It turns the AI into a fact checker. But let me play devil's advocate here. Is there a danger in this automated gathering? If we just scoop up 300 links without reading them, are we actually learning or are we just, digital hoarding?
That's the tension, isn't it? But I'd argue it empowers verification. It's not hoarding if you use the tool to synthesize. If anything, it makes you more rigorous, not less, because the effort required to check a source drops to zero. If checking is hard, you won't do it. If it's one click, you might.
That's a fair point. Friction hides truth. Speed reveals it. Now, speaking of hoarding, let's talk about the mess. We mentioned tab bankruptcy earlier. The guide talks about a feature called tabs for bulk management. This feels like it was designed for my brain.
This is for the messy researchers, which is basically all of us. Real research is never linear. You've got 15 tabs open. One is your email, one is Spotify, and then 8 of them are about healthy cooking.
Right, and usually you'd have to go to each of those 8 tabs individually to save them while trying not to get distracted by your email.
Right, but with the tabs feature, you open it up, and it gives you a list of every open tab in your browser window with a little checkbox next to it.
Oh, that's clever. It treats your browser window like a to-do list.
Exactly. You just uncheck Spotify, uncheck your email, and leave the 8 cooking tabs checked. Then you hit Create New Notebook and name it Healthy Recipes, and it just visits every single one of those tabs and dumps them all into one database.
That is a massive time saver. It's like a Close All Tabs button that actually saves your work.
It's instant relief. And the guide gives a great example of what to do with that data. So you've got 5 different recipes. You can ask the AI, Look at all 5 recipes. Create a single shopping list that combines all the ingredients.
That's practical magic, but
There is always a but. Once we have all these notebooks, healthy recipes, space travel, AI history, we run into an organizational problem within NotebookLM itself, don't we?
we do. The interface is very flat.
Flat.
There's no hierarchy. This is the #1 complaint people have. There are no folders. You look at your dashboard, and it's just a list of every notebook you've ever made. Work project is next to school research, which is next to my Dungeons & Dragons campaign. It's a mess.
And Google hasn't fixed this. It seems so basic. Not yet. They're focused on the AI model, not the file system.
Yeah.
But the extension fixes it with tags.
Okay, walk us through that. How does it work if the underlying system doesn't support folders?
It builds a layer on top. In the extension, you go to Notebooks, click Tags, and create a new one. Let's say you make a cooking tag and make it green. You tag your healthy recipes notebook with it.
And does that just put a label on it, or does it actually change how you see the list?
It filters the view. That's the key. When you click that green cooking tag, the list changes. You only see the notebooks with that tag. Everything else, the work stuff, the sci-fi stuff, it all disappears.
It's interesting, isn't it? Why do we crave folders and categories so much when search is so powerful? Technically, you could just search for recipe, but we want the folder.
It's about cognitive load. Visual organization helps us switch contexts.
Right.
We need to see the boundaries. When I'm in work mode, I don't want to see my Dungeons & Dragons notes. It's just visual noise that distracts me. Tags create a mental wall that lets us focus.
That makes total sense. We need to defend our attention.
Welcome back. We've talked about getting data in the capture, the links. We've talked about organizing it with tags. But now I want to pivot to something a bit more serious, something the guide calls data sovereignty, getting your data out.
This is the elephant in the room.
The guide discusses a second extension called NotebookLM Exporter.
Why is this necessary? Why can't I just trust Google to keep my notes safe?
Well, the guide points out a scary reality. You can't easily download sources from a shared notebook. And more importantly, if you lose your Google account, or if Google decides to sunset the product, which, let's be honest, they have a history of doing, you lose your second brain.
That's a terrifying thought. We put so much trust in these cloud platforms, assuming they're permanent, but they aren't.
We're renting space. We aren't owners. And NotebookLM Exporter is the insurance policy. You click the icon and it gives you options. You can export the audio, the notes, or the sources.
The sources being the actual articles you saved.
Correct. You click Sources, hit Download, and you get a ZIP file. Now, here's where the guide gives some very specific technical advice. It says you should choose Markdown format over HTML.
There's that word again, Markdown. We know it's clean text, but why is it better for exporting?
Portability. Markdown is the universal language of modern note-taking. Apps like Notion, Obsidian, Evernote, they all speak Markdown fluently. If you export in HTML, it's messy. If you export in Markdown, you can literally drag that file into Obsidian and it looks perfect. It's future-proof.
So if I export my notes in Markdown, I'm not just saving a file, I'm ensuring that I can use that information in a completely different piece of software 10 years from now.
Exactly. It keeps the data nimble. It means you aren't locked in.
This raises an important question for me. If you can't export your thoughts, do you truly own them?
No. I'd argue you don't. Portability is the only guarantee of digital ownership.
That's a critical takeaway. We need to own our digital footprint. Okay, so we've got the tools. We've got capture, links, tags, and export. But tools are only as good as the workflow. The guide outlines some best practices. What's the first rule?
The first rule is simple, but kind of counterintuitive. Browse first, capture later.
Explain that. Didn't we just say capture should be instant?
It should be instant, but it shouldn't be constant. It's about protecting your focus. The suggestion is to let the tabs pile up. Do your reading, open 15 tabs, then at the end of the hour, use that tabs feature to batch capture everything into an inbox notebook all at once.
That goes back to what we said about flow state. Keep reading modes separate from filing mode.
Precisely. Don't mix them. The second rule is about visual speed. Color code your tags. Build a system. Make red urgent. Make blue work. Make gray archives.
Because the brain processes color faster than text.
Much faster. You can scan a list of 50 notebooks and instantly spot the work stuff just by the blue pixels. It saves milliseconds, but those milliseconds add up.
And there was a point about cleaning links, too. Something about avoiding social media.
Yes,
Yeah.
This is a big one. When you use that link extractor, do not just click Add All blindly. You don't want links to Twitter or Facebook clogging up your research. The guide explicitly says to exclude Twitter.com, Facebook.com, using that filter box. Otherwise, your notebook fills up with noise.
And there's a technical reason for that too, right? NotebookLM isn't infinite.
It is not. And this is a gotcha that catches a lot of people. The free version caps you at 50 sources per notebook.
50. That sounds like a lot, but if you're scraping a Wikipedia page...
It fills up fast. If you're at 45 sources and you try to dump in 10 more tabs, it's just going to fail. You'll get a limit reached error.
So what's the fix if you hit that wall?
You have to prune, you have to be a gardener, delete old sources you aren't using, or just start a new notebook at part 2. It's a good reminder that digital space isn't infinite.
Is there a trade-off here between hoarding information and curating it?
There is. Hoarding creates noise. Curation via these tools creates clarity. That limit of 50 sources is actually kind of a blessing. It forces you to ask, is this source really valuable? Does it deserve one of my 50 slots?
That's a very stoic way to look at a software limitation. The obstacle is the way.
It is. Constraints breed creativity. If you had infinite space, you'd have infinite junk.
Before we wrap up, were there any other common bugs or troubleshooting tips the guide mentioned?
A couple quick ones. If you install the extension and can't find the icon, check the puzzle piece in Chrome. You have to pin it to the toolbar.
I always forget that.
And if the link extractor says 0 links found, just refresh the page. Sometimes the extension loads before the web page is finished rendering.
Simple enough.
And lastly, remember that page capture works best on regular websites. You're trying to capture a PDF that's already open in a browser tab, it might struggle.
Good to know. So let's bring this all together. What's the big idea here? What's the philosophy?
The big idea is that NotebookLM is an incredibly powerful engine, maybe the best we have for synthesis. But out of the box, it's missing the steering wheel and the tires. These extensions, tools, and exporter, they make it drivable.
We're moving from a passive experience where the interface fights us to an active one where we control the flow.
Exactly. Capture becomes instant. Research goes deep with citations. Organization is possible with tags. And ownership is secured with Markdown export. It turns a chaos machine into a productivity machine.
It's a complete ecosystem upgrade.
It really is. And the craziest part, it's all free.
So for the listener who has NotebookLM open right now, or maybe has been hesitant to dive in because of that friction, what's the call to action?
The guide suggests a challenge, and I love this. Install NotebookLM tools. Go to a Wikipedia page for a topic you actually care about, not work, maybe a hobby or a band you like. Use the page capture button. Just see how fast it is. Experience that lack of friction.
And realize how much time you've been wasting on copy-paste.
Exactly. You'll wonder how you ever lived without it.
I think the final thought for me is about community. We often wait for the big tech giants to fix their products. We complain about the missing features. But here, independent developers just stepped in, they saw a gap, and they built a bridge.
That's the beauty of the extension ecosystem. We don't have to wait. We can build the tools we need.
We don't have to wait. I like that. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Go capture some knowledge.
See you in the next one.